I'm looking up in the air.
Good.
Hi, it's Ann from the Olive Scene. Sorry, we had a little bit of technical difficulties, and so we don't have our usual camera. It seems to be not working. So we're doing it off of an iPhone. Hopefully you can hear me. I will bring things into the camera since we don't have that wide visual like we usually do. So this is one of our most requested recipes. We usually have a picture of it out at the stores so people see how wonderful these Brussels sprouts look, and they ask for the recipe a lot. So thought I would do them up. It's a one pan kind of dish to create, and it's really easy. The nice thing about it is that Brussels sprouts are available pretty much year round now. They are in season in this area anytime from July all the way through January, because a lot of times in places they can make it through some of the colder weather. A lot of people feel they're best and sweetest after the first frost, and so the big places of growing Brussels sprouts in the United States is Northern California and Washington, even Long Island, New York are the three biggest. Brussels sprouts are part of the cabbage family. In fact, there's a red Brussels sprout that's a merge between the green Brussels sprout and a red cabbage, and it's a little bit sweeter, a little harder to find. But Brussels sprouts, when they are roasted or when they are pan seared, that caramelization really brings out the flavor, and that's what we're going to do today. Becky is manning the computer. There may be a little delay if you have a question getting it to me because of this setup with the phone and the computer, but we'll be on it. And of course we can answer your questions afterwards too. Just keep sending them through Facebook, and Becky will get them to me, or she'll answer them as well.
Jody Lynn says hi.
Well, hello Jody Lynn, thanks for joining us. So what I started with was the pecans, and they are in here and they are toasting in the pan. This pan is dry, nothing else is in there, and you want to keep moving them. I have them on a medium heat, not too hot and it's not low. If it's too low, it's just going to take a little bit longer, and you just want them to get fragrant. So I'm starting to smell them. They're starting to turn a little bit toasty. You want to make sure you don't burn them. Burnt nuts taste terrible. So we're going to give them one more minute while I start the Brussels sprouts. I did prepare them, sliced them in half and washed them. And other vegetables, before you roast them, I tell you dry them, dry them, dry them. With the pan roasting, that little bit of moisture that's on there is going to be a quick steam, very little, but it does get the Brussels sprout going, which is nice because it won't take so long then to roast. So the Brussels sprouts have this outer kind of heavier leaf. That one we want to take off. So I'm just going to cut off the bottom, very close to the bottom, just a very tiny bit do I take off. And then I peel these outside tougher leaves. 2 is usually good. There's one more really dark one here, so I'm going to take that off. And there you have it. If you wanted to do whole Brussels sprouts, very common to just score the core of this. And what that does when you cook it, it brings that moisture and that heat down inside this very dense inside of the sprout. But we're going to do them in half so that we can get them cooked up and seared really well. And you can see nice golden yellow. It's not gray. If they're gray inside, they're a little bit old. Brussels sprouts can last quite a long time, up to 3 to 5 weeks even, if it's nice and cold in your refrigerator. But you want them to be nice and bright colored. Then you know they're nice and fresh. So this is what I did with these. I have them washed and ready. A little fruit fly there. We have a lot of peaches in the house right now. And we'll get that going. My nuts are smelling really, really good, the pecans. And they're ready to go. So I am going to, usually a lot of times if I'm getting started early in the day, I'll toast them, turn the heat off, and just let them sit and cool in the pan. They'll continue to toast. But they're pretty well done, so I'm just going to get them out of here. So same pan, I'm going to turn up the heat a bit. It may take just a minute. And 2 slices of bacon. You can cut it up beforehand if you want. I find it's easier just to cook the bacon and then crumble it after.
Is it okay if it's turkey bacon?
Turkey bacon is wonderful.
Rhonda says hello.
Hello, Rhonda. You can also use prosciutto if you'd like. That's also nice. bacon, don't overdo it. Okay, so I was thinking about this. This is a very simple recipe, but it's still like a pyramid. So the base of that is the Brussels sprouts. That should be the main ingredient. The other ones are the smaller building blocks that make this beautiful dish that all comes together. And I talk about that a lot with not overusing the oil or the vinegars or anything else. So the bacon is there to give it this nice little salty, crispy crunch. We don't want to taste like we're eating bacon with Brussels sprouts. We want Brussels sprouts with this little burst of flavor that people are like, wow, this is incredible. Same thing with the pecans. Same thing with the oil, the salt, the pepper, all those things. We want them to merge together. You don't need to use a lot. So 2 pieces of bacon for 4 cups of sliced Brussels sprouts is more than enough. Okay, so we're going to get this going. It's going to take just a minute here. While that is cooking,
I'm pinning the recipe to the top of the live so people can see that.
Okay, so the recipe is going up. One of the other things you can do if you want to get everything started at the same time is, of course, you could toast those pecans, walnuts, if you want to use pumpkin seeds, pepitos, any of those. You could toast them in the oven. And if you do it in the oven, slow, about 300 degrees, for about 10 minutes is usually about what it is. If you go slower, you need to go longer. If you go higher, because you want to get going really fast, watch them carefully because, again, you don't want to have them burned. They really don't taste well. Don't taste good. Okay, so while the bacon is cooking, we're going to use not only the bacon pieces, but we're going to use some of the bits and some of the bacon oil, not too much, to saute our Brussels sprouts. But we are going to use a nice, fresh pressed extra virgin olive oil. I'm so excited about this Barnea. Barnea olives originated in Israel, right outside the Sinai Desert, right on the Mediterranean. When we think about the Mediterranean basin, people think about it being more, Italy and Greece and France, but we also have these wonderful olive trees that grew in, Italy and Palestine and all those areas. In 1997, the Barnea olive tree was introduced to Australia, and it has done phenomenally well. This we just got in from Australia. It's incredibly fresh, great flavor profile. It is a mild oil, but it's a very unique mild in that it has a great complexity of flavor. So it's got some kind of green apple notes, a little bit of fennel notes, and this beautiful pepper finish, which we always look for in a fresh pressed olive oil. We know then that it is a good fresh pressed olive oil. A nice mild oil is still good for cooking because it has a high smoke point because it is fresh. That's the key. It's old oil, adulterated oil, those are the ones that smoke. So this is a good all-purpose oil. You can cook with it. You can do some pan frying with it. Deep frying, I would save that for a big bold oil, and really anything you would deep fry you can pan fry with a lot less oil, so it really works out well. So Barnea, beautiful olive oil. Come and get it at the olive scene. It's brand new in. So we're going to use that in the bottom with our Brussels sprouts as soon as this bacon is done. When I was actually looking up to write this recipe, and Becky and I were going back and forth on, is it Brussels sprouts or is it Brussels sprouts? We had to look it up. It is actually Brussels sprouts with an S. And interestingly enough, it's the first kind of record of Brussels sprouts is in ancient Rome, and it was kind of a precursor to what we have now. What we know now showed up in about the 13th century in the Brussels area of Belgium. It became very popular when the French came over to the United States in Louisiana, and it really took off there. And so that's where it all came from, and that's what we enjoy having now today. Brussels sprouts. Okay, bacon is just about done. We want it to be nice and crispy.
It smells good.
It does smell good.
Between that and the pecans.
Yes. So there's nice bacon saltiness. We actually have had people ask us, when are we going to get bacon flavored olive oil? And the nice thing about bacon is it's salty and it's crispy and crunchy. And when you think about bacon flavored olive oil, I've tasted numerous of them, and they just taste like liquid smoke, oily. So that's not not one that we're probably going to carry. We do have a smoked olive oil, and that's got a wonderful smoky flavor to it. It's nice and clean. It's not greasy, which I really, really enjoy. But using bacon, turkey bacon, any of that gives it a nice little flavor. And of course the crisp and the crunch, that's what it's all about. The other product we're going to use in this is our fig balsamic vinegar. On the recipe it calls for either traditional or fig, but as you know, if you've watched any of our videos and come into the store, you can substitute with anything that you find that you would really like. Our Neapolitan herb balsamic vinegar is a wonderful substitution. It's very herby and it's got a little bit more kick to it. The key, once again, is when you do this correctly and people taste these Brussels sprouts, you're going to get the where did you get the Brussels sprouts as opposed to what's on it. And that is what's great. That little bit of fig balsamic vinegar that we're going to put on there is going to caramelize and lend a little bit of sweetness to the Brussels sprouts, but bring out the flavor of the Brussels sprouts. And that's what's really, really good. Okay, so that is ready to come off. I'm just going to take the bacon and let it drain on a paper towel. And there is not much in the way of oil because it was only 2, but I'm going to just take some of that out. Be careful when you do this. You could pour it out too. But I want the little bits that are in the bottom of the actual pan. I'm using my end on this. Which would be good if I pick it up and start flinging the pan around. Okay, so the next thing that's going to go in is a tablespoon or 2. 2 tablespoons is more than enough for 4 cups of the Brussels sprouts. We're going to let that heat up. And I'm keeping it on a medium-high heat because, again, I want to sear these. That little bit of water, you're going to hear it go. There we have it. I'll bring it over so everybody can see. I got it. Can you see the whole thing going?
Yep.
So I've got that little bit of bacon fat in the bottom, mostly the bits. And of course this wonderful extra virgin olive oil. So now, guess what I get to do while this is sitting here? I'm not going to touch it. Give it 5 minutes. If it starts to get too dark, flip it over in 3 minutes or so. But let them just sit there. That little bit of moisture that's on there is going to steam it, get it started in cooking. And then we want it to brown really well on the bottom. I'm going to actually move this to the back burner and bring one over. Voila. That is more on the almost done side, so you don't have to sit there, though I could keep talking, for the next 10-15 minutes. About 5 minutes, I really would leave this alone. Let it sit, turn it over, let it sit for 5 minutes, turn it over again if you need to. Usually about 15 minutes and these will be done. These ones are a little bit smaller than the first batch I did was a little bit bigger, so they took a little bit longer than these ones would. Oh, one other thing, don't overcrowd your pan. You want everything to pretty much be in the bottom. There's a couple, maybe this is just a little bit too, but I'm going to spread them out. You want them to not be too piled up in the pan, so you can see it there. Okay, so let me stick this back here. We're gonna
magic of television.
Magic. Look at that, how wonderfully browned. So at this point actually is really good. If you wanted to serve this for company and you don't want to do it at the last minute, which again, my brother Pete, who was on Facebook with me last time, is always about getting everything done so half an hour before all the company comes, everybody that's giving the party can just relax for a minute, maybe have a glass of wine, a cup of coffee or whatever, and not be frantic. This is great because at this point, that's a good stopping point. Just take it off the fire, let it sit. Now your company comes, you've pulled the roast out, you've pulled out, you have the grill going, whatever it is you're going to do, and then go ahead and heat these back up, and we're going to let them get to a nice little searing temperature here. And then the balsamic vinegar is going to go in, and we're going to let that caramelize. That's going to take a couple of minutes. There's where you want to be careful that you don't let it burn. So you don't want the balsamic vinegar at a point of boiling. You want it just below that because we want it to thicken and reduce and caramelize, but we don't want it to burn. Any questions, anybody so far? Okay, so we're going to let this get a little bit hot so we can get that balsamic vinegar in there. So I had this thought that I would have this nice dinner all ready, and this would be the side and you would get to see it all, but my car broke down. So it was a little frantic getting home and getting here, but we have it ready. So, but I do have some pork chops seasoned up. They're ready to go on the grill, so think about that. Nice seasoned grilled pork chop. Wonderful with this more complex Brussels sprouts. And that's another key. Everything shouldn't be at this level on your plate. I let the pork chops be in a nice simple preparation, and this one is a little bit more fancy. If you want to go the other route, let's say you're doing a herb encrusted pork chop or something a little bit more complex, saying that word, then you could just roast the Brussels sprouts like this and be done. You don't have to add the bacon or the pecans or the balsamic vinegar. You can let the Brussels sprouts or the other dish be the highlights and let this be truly just a little bit of side. These are wonderful. So we're getting going here. We're going to do a little bit of my favorite, seasonello. It's going to go on. Some nice black pepper. Okay, we're going to give that just one more minute. When you come to the olive scene, remember you get to taste and try. So I'm going to cut up this bacon so it's ready to go in. You get to taste and try all these different flavors together. So if you are thinking about doing these Brussels sprouts and you want something a little more, hey, we have a phone call. It must be a customer. A little more herbaceous, you could, instead of using this single varietal extra virgin olive oil, you could use the Herbes de Provence or the Tuscan herb olive oil. Any of those would be great. Give it a little bit, you know, herb flavor. You could do garlic if you wanted it to be more garlicky and kind of Italian tasting. Okay, that's chopped up. I've got the pecans. This seems like we got a nice heat going here. Okay, a tablespoon of balsamic vinegar. I'm only going to do a half right now because this really wasn't as much as that one. You could go up to 2. But as I said, I don't want to overdo. I'm going to let that caramelize a second. Can you see it going? Mm-hmm. Okay. I don't want to overdo the vinegar and feel like I'm eating a vinaigrette with my Brussels sprouts. That's not what we're doing here. Leftovers. Make extra. You're going to want leftovers tomorrow because you could take it to work, have it with your sandwich. You could chop them up and put it in an omelet. You could put it with some quinoa. Put it on a pasta tomorrow night. As long as you're making it, make extra. Always. And that's looking pretty good. Maybe just a touch more. I'd rather err on the side of a little bit less than too much. The first time I made this, my son was tasting it and he said, "What the heck did you do?" I said, "You know, I did this and this and this." He goes, "Why didn't you do that years ago? What have you eaten the Brussels sprouts?" So, it is good.
Nancy says she loves Brussels sprouts prepared this way.
Thank you, Nancy. Hey, when you make them at home, send us a picture. We'd love to get you up on Facebook, especially on our page. Our customers love to see what other customers are doing. So if you're making a variation on this, if you're making it just like this, send us the picture. We would love that.
And it is one of our most requested recipes in the store.
It is. Okay, this is ready. You can see you can't see any of the balsamic vinegar. It has caramelized onto the Brussels sprouts. And the smell of it is fabulous. We've got our wonderful little bowl here. Actually, before I do that, the bacon I put in with the Brussels sprouts. Because that big balsamic vinegar will caramelize the bacon too. If you ever had caramelized bacon, it's delicious. Okay, we got a nice little, and you can see the bacon has kind of changed a little bit from the balsamic vinegar. There we go. There's our Brussels sprouts. top that. Again, I'm not going to use all of the pecans because this was a smaller serving than the 4 cups. This was about half. And there you have it. Brussels sprouts with balsamic vinegar. We used our wonderful fig balsamic vinegar with our fresh pressed, straight from Australia, Barnea olive oil. Thanks for joining me. See you next month on Facebook Live.